Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War Realism walkthrough. This is going to be a no-nonsense approach, where we go through all the gunfights, transition together, and I showcase some gameplay of me overcoming the hardest difficulty, and then I can impart with you, kind people, some of the tips and information that will hopefully get you through this game. And the first piece of advice I can give you is that the game is not that difficult, you probably won't even need this video. And it sounds kinda counterintuitive, doesn't it? A guide maker to tell you that this guide isn't really necessary, and the reason I'm saying that is because it's true. You know it, I know it, modern gaming is not as hard as it used to be, it's a lot more accessible, and this campaign here is by far one of the easier Call of Duty campaigns I've ever played, and I've played all of them. But what I can do, ladies and gentlemen, is I can hopefully give you gameplay that will satisfy your viewing need to see something interesting, and I can hopefully show some strategies that are a bit more aggressive and a bit crazier than the average walkthrough would be. And at the beginning here, you're going to be running around with a choice of 3 weapons. You also are going to be able to get the choice of 2 perks coming up, and the perks that I'm going to choose are the ability to move at full speed while ADSing, and the ability to have rapid fire on my gun, because the faster your gun fires, the more bullets you put down the range, the more damage you can do. And I'm all about damage, I'm all about trying to be quick and assertive, and I'm going to try to make decently aggressive gameplay for the rest of this run. For the people who like my channel, like the commentary, and just want to have some gameplay in the background to maybe listen to. And at this start area here, it was my intention to make some really cool gameplay, some sick aim and moments of craziness going on, but then you realise that this game doesn't really do checkpoints very well, so if you die at any point in this entire sequence where you're capturing this man, you go all the way back to the start of climbing out onto this roof. And in a usual Call of Duty campaign, this area might have a checkpoint midway through, and I played this a few times to try and get a decent run of it, and in none of those times did I ever get a better checkpoint. And personally, I think that Call of Duty on its hardest mode should be a war of inches with good checkpoints rather than a marathon with bad checkpoints. And luckily, the game isn't too difficult, so you won't struggle because of it, but when it comes for my job trying to get the best footage I can, when I'm restarting to try and make it look sexier or more interesting and more fun, all it means is I'm having to do way too much gameplay and it gets kind of tedious, so I stopped being as anally retentive as I would have liked to have been. If the checkpoints were good, guys, I would have got the dirtiest footage I physically could, but unfortunately they're just not really there. And the good news is, the game does communicate with the player quite well, and it tells you when they pop up and where you're going to get one, so you can know whether or not you have one or you don't, but it just kind of shows you how sporadic and intermittent they truly are, which is unfortunately not my favourite way to play. But as you push forward here, you're going to get on this jeep, and you have to be really careful here. If you kill the jeep on your right too quickly, it will kill you every time. So you'll notice that I crouch and I just kind of hip fire instead of killing those people, because every time I did it and beamed them instantly, I died, because the explosion just completely nukes your car. And this entire scripted sequence here is kind of weird, but I do really appreciate that they let you defend. In COD, the hardest parts usually are when they stick you on a turret or on an on-rail segment and you can't hide, so you can't heal and you have to fight back. When you play on Veteran and above, the enemies do damage really quickly, they've got perfect aim, and a lot of the times there's just nothing you can do, you just die. You have to just play the grind until they give you the free pass. And I've never been a fan of that design. This game has it as well in a couple of sequences, which is really cancer if you ask me. This segment here is the way you fix it. This is literally how you make that segment better. You give the player the ability to heal themselves, to hide, to be defensive, to be strategic, and it's just such a better idea. I'm not a big fan of this sequence here when it shows you the tutorial and it throws your tiny car under all the other cars before you've even had a chance to control it. And they can actually blow up the device that you're using and make it so you have to use it again, which is kind of awkward considering that the game put you in that shitty situation to begin with. But run it underneath the plane, that will detonate it and it will end this sequence. This moment here, you can shoot at the people that are left, but there's no real reason to, because you don't get any hit detection on them, because they're going to get taken out by a jet engine instead. Or a plane engine, I should say. And then it puts us into the second level of the game, Fractured Jaw, or Fractured Jaw, as it says. This sequence will probably be muted, because there's a lot of copyrighted music in this game, and I don't want this video to get assassinated on YouTube if I can help it. and we immediately get put into the first of the on-rails helicopter gunning sequences. So you can actually fail this sequence if you don't shoot the RPG guys, and I wouldn't blame you if you failed here because it can be very difficult to even see people. Cold War in the multiplayer has some of the worst visibility since Modern Warfare, which is the king of bad visibility, and in this campaign I found it very difficult in moments such as this to even see the people I was supposed to hit. You're just staring at this crazy, like, lemon yellow terracotta city filled with lemon yellow terracotta people. Luckily, it doesn't outstay its welcome and we can play the game, so if you rush over here, pick up the RPD, you've got 75 rounds now to kill these people. And this segment here, these enemy locations where I'm flicking to, they're all set. You can learn where those people are, so it's very easy to kill them quite quickly and take them out in one fell swoop. And the gun I'm using now is the the Vietnam M16, which means it's not triple burst, it's actually fully automatic. And if you ever played the old Call of Duties, oftentimes the M16 in the campaign was full auto, and then in multiplayer it was triple burst. So if you pick this gun up, you might be tempted to burst fire it. You don't need to. This is an incredibly fast firing, ridiculous weapon, and it is super fun to use. But once again guys, you do not get a checkpoint here until kinda late into this fight, so if you were to restart to try and get better footage, you go all the way back to that first encounter I did with the RPD. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of enemies here, there's a lot of flaws and tiers for people to attack you, a lot of opportunities to do some sexy things and make the footage really nice, but unfortunately I don't want to repeat 15 minutes of gameplay every time I miss a bullet, you know, and it's just not designed for how I want to play it, and that's okay, I can make do with it. This gun is so good, by the way, it's really fun. I think this is one of the only levels in the game you get to use it too. Can you imagine if this gun was like this in multiplayer? The M16 is already one of the most broken guns in the game. Can you imagine if it had this fire rate? Because I don't know what this fire rate is, but it's incredibly high. Like, it's an unbelievably fast fire rate. But as you push forward into this courtyard, there's going to be a couple of guys in this building. The difficulty on this game, you can die if you overextend, but it's only from overextension. Mostly you'll get chance to recover like I'm doing right now. If this was COD 1, 2, 3 or 4, I'm already dead. You can't live this long when somebody's seen you and someone's shooting you. But luckily, this is a modern game. Modern games are getting a lot more accessible, a lot easier. There's a guy on the balcony here that I didn't see. So there's the guy on the stairs, and then there's a guy just there next to those boxes. See him? That's me checking the difficulty. I'm going to do that a few times to make sure that it doesn't do any shenanigans. But the game has made it so that you can run and gun. And if I'm going to choose between instantly being melted by incredibly accurate machines and being able to run and gun with a risk of death, I do think that this is a much more fun campaign for fighting back, because it's not just you getting view kicked into oblivion. And quite recently, I did Modern Warfare 2, I also did Black Ops 1 on Veteran, and those campaigns, especially on PC, were just impossible to fight back when you were getting hit. In this game, you can. And I want to give them props for that. I want to say that as much as this campaign is short and unfinished and clearly rushed and could have been way better than it was, I do think it's very fun when you're shooting people. You don't spend a lot of time shooting people because there's so much cinematic nonsense going on in storytelling, which is unfortunate because the shooting gallery of COD is kind of dying. It's turning much more into, here's 9 different flavours of gameplay packed together in small doses, completely framed by narrative that's not that exciting, generic as fuck milsim nonsense. And, like, look at that, we've just done a shooting section that was super fun, and they've thrown me into now flying a helicopter. And flying a helicopter is not bad, it's a pretty fun sequence, but if it was a choice between a segment like this and shooting the gun for another 10 minutes, I want to shoot the gun. The hit feedback on this game with the hit markers and the audio is really nice. It's one of the strongest aspects of Cold War, arguably one of the worst CODs ever made. An absolute rushed bodged job of nonsense that barely functions on any perceivable level, that is absolutely saved by its zombies even though the zombie mode is super limited and there's no variety. And a campaign that could have been one of the best campaigns they've ever released if it had had the attention that it needed to be a fully fledged campaign. And this segment's kind of funny too, because I'm trying to lead my aim to hit this enemy here, this attack helicopter I'm fighting, and I'm just not having the most success with doing it because you really don't have to. With the missiles you do, but it's better to just target this with the gun and shoot it. And unfortunately, when you're using mouse and keyboard on this game, the mouse input is absolutely horrendous. It's hilarious if you know anything about mouse. And when you're in the vehicles, your sensitivity's wrong. So if my sensitivity was like it was when I was running around with a normal gun in this vehicle, I'd be absolutely fine and my aim would be great. But alas, this just feels wonky as hell, so I look like I've never used a controller in my life. On the bright side, there's almost no way to fail this sequence, which is quite nice. You can just kind of go through and destroy things and have a nice little power fantasy and enjoy the hit marker sounds, which have just got such a nice punch to them. And marvel at the visuals, because the visuals are really nice too. You know, it's not an ugly game. It's not as pretty as Modern Warfare for obvious reasons, but it does have its charm. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk about the mouse, actually. Because I don't know if people know this problem. I know the majority of people that play Call of Duty do so on console. And I know that console has problems with the aim assist being a bit intermittent. Sometimes it's way too strong, other times it's way too wonky. It's giving people aim resist, it's turning off during a gunfight, it's doing a lot of weird things. And my heart does go out to those people, because when you buy a game, you expect it to function when it's like the 20th game in the franchise and the old game's mastered these fucking issues. Like, it doesn't make any sense, does it? That they can have these kind of problems, and it all goes into these wonderfully aggressive new techniques that they're using to force people into paying for their bullshit game economy. But I'm not going to talk too much about that until much later on when I'm angry and disenchanted. But the mouse in this game should just be a port from Modern Warfare and be a port from Black Ops 4. The mouse in Modern Warfare was fine. The mouse in Black Ops 4 is probably the best mouse input I've ever felt. It's one of those games where I could always tell where my aim was going to be, I could always tell how accurate I was going to be, and I fell in love with the feel of it. It was such a beautiful feel. The mouse is so good in Black Ops 4 that when I use mousesensitivity.com to convert my aim into other games, I use Black Ops 4 as the base level. When I want to measure out my 3-inch 360 or whatever it is, that's what I use, so that I can compare my aim between games and hopefully build on getting better. And speaking on building on getting better, this is an absolutely lucky bullshit segment that has nothing to do with you and everything to do with the game. I died here on stream several times because sometimes you just get killed. That was one attempt on this recording. I didn't die once, and I don't know how I didn't die because that segment is notoriously bad for killing you. So be very careful on that sequence, know that it's looking bullshit and not skill, and do whatever you can because the sensitivity on that gun is terrible. But suffice it to say, Black Ops 4's mouse input is absolutely superb. I don't know what they've done. If I was a genie and I could wish for things, I would wish for that mouse input on every game I play, because my aim would get so good, I would look like a machine. That's how fun it feels to use that input. Another segment there where I probably should have died, but I get very lucky, thankfully. This is a timed sequence, all you have to do is kind of wait it out, I think. I just kind of lay here like classic Call of Duty campaigns. This is a very quintessential COD moment. You do this a lot in a lot of CODs, so I think they nailed it, Raven, with this particular moment. I would have preferred a little better cover to fight back, but it is what it is. So Black Ops 4 has superb mouse input. This is a brick in the wall. And then we get forward to this game. So if you don't know, ladies and gentlemen, when you change your FOV in a video game on PC, it changes how far your mouse moves with your sensitivity. So in order for sensitivity to work correctly and be programmed correctly and to correlate to what you set it to, it needs to make sure that it is being modified and multiplied by the FOV slider to the correct amount that it normally does. And a lot of games will use a universal amount for this so that you can tweak the sensitivity and get it to where it needs to be. In Modern Warfare and Black Ops 4, this was done perfectly. I never had an issue, it never felt weird, it never felt odd, it just worked, I never questioned it, I never even needed to know it existed. In this game it doesn't. This is a stealth section, by the way, and look at that. I have no idea why that guy went flying, but that was kind of cool, right? Guy's just built different, apparently. In this game, depending on your FOV, and depending on the measure of zoom from your optic, depends on how your sensitivity is calculated. And you'll notice that this game has a lot of optics. I'm swapping between them tons of times because they're kind of annoying. I don't like half the optics in this game, which is something I'll talk about later. So every time I get a gun, guys, my sensitivity when I have a gun with its iron sights is one thing. Then when I get a gun with a red dot, it's another thing. Then I get a gun with a reflex, it's another thing. Then when I get a gun with like a tiny reflex, it's another thing. And then when I get an ACOG, it's completely different too. So every time I pick a gun up on this game and it has any kind of optic on it, I am guessing what my sensitivity is, because it is incorrectly calculating the amount of zoom on my FOV, and it is changing my sensitivity. The first thing you do, guys, when you want to get better aim on mouse and keyboard is you find a sensitivity that works for you and you tweak it up to the point where it is the perfect sensitivity for your ability. And then you practice it until it becomes muscle memory. You practice, you practice, you practice, and you get to the point where you can put your cursor anywhere very quickly and achieve a decent level of accuracy. That's what you're training for. You can kill those people, by the way. You don't have to though, and it doesn't really matter. You are practicing so that you can put your gun anywhere you want it to be as quickly as possible, and that's what being good on a mouse is. That's what having good aim means. It means you've practiced enough so that you can do it via reflex immediately. It is an incredibly difficult and skillful thing to do. It takes years for some people, depending on how gifted you are. And the faster you can do it, the better you are at it. And that's what you should take pride in. That's why you can take pride in your aim. You don't have to save this guy. I decided on this run through to do a completely different run than my streamed run, so I'm going to be making good decisions. Saving him ends up hurting you later on and giving you the opportunity to murder him. So you don't have to do that, guys. If you're just following this walkthrough, you can move along here and hit this door coming up if you choose to. I just wanted to do that because it was part of what I didn't do last time. And you'll notice the edits are thick and fast here. I'm trimming out all dialogue, all unessential moments when you're not playing. I'm just putting together the pieces of what you have to do. And hopefully, it'll make for a more interesting video for people that don't want to see all the boring downtime. But can you imagine, guys, spending a couple of months getting really good at a set sensitivity, understanding exactly where your cursor's going to go when you move your hand or your arm, and then when you do it in a video game, when you've set the settings to be identical to what your normal settings are, and then it doesn't do it correctly, and you can feel it. Can you imagine how strange that would be? Like, translate it to whatever you do. It throws everything off. So this game, as it stands right now, before they tweak it and patch it and hopefully fix it, it's impossible to feel like your aim is where it needs to be until you get used to one setting and then leave it. So if you use nothing but iron sights, you'll be okay. But the moment you put a different optic on, you're screwed. And that cut just then, guys, you have to interact with the sofa to put her on. If you dump her like I just did, that won't work. I just left it in there because I thought it was funny. But here is the next gunfight. They immediately start you with a 50 round mag MP5 that has a red dot on it that's ruining my sensitivity. So my aim is going to be goofy when I have that gun, but luckily, I've got like a year, I've got over a year of actually trying to get better at aiming on mouse. So fingers crossed my brain can calculate it and I can be effective. But it's just something that shouldn't exist. Like this gun right here, this scope feels different too. Like every single time you aim, guys, it's like rolling a dice and it's very, very bad. And I don't know why it works the way it does, but it certainly does. As I pick up the Gallo here, swap it out for a QZ with another optic. You're going to see me picking up a lot of guns. If you're new to the channel, you might be wondering why I'm constantly picking up different guns. It's purely because I'm incredibly picky about what I use, and I like certain optics and certain iron sights, and I'm always looking for something that's more tailored to what I enjoy. And I didn't really find it much in this game, because there's so many weird attachments on guns. You can't shoot through this fence for some reason. And I really tried as well. Really had a go at that dude. But Lazar's kicking everyone's ass. I'm not even needed right now, which is kind of interesting. But the campaign in this it's got some pretty cool moments. It's got some fun moments. I really like the level where you're walking around and sneaking around that Russian base and you've got a bunch of objectives to do, because it reminds me of Mission Impossible on the N64, which is a really goofy game, but I liked that game a lot when I was younger. I like that Raven have tried to do something like that and make it dynamic. I like that a lot of your decisions have different effects and it takes you to different places. I enjoy the fact that you have different endings and different conclusions. I think that that's a really nice touch, and they should be proud of what they've done there. I think that level at the end of the game where you repeat it multiple times because it's showing you the MK Ultra brainwashing, I think that level is a good idea, but it doesn't play well and it's not fun. And I really think that that's a huge blemish on the game, because personally I find that area tedious, annoying and needless. It's just super repetitive and looks like a game that has no budget and no time and no production to be able to make a full campaign. So it's what they had to do to make it seem like the game was longer than it is. And I appreciate that it has story repercussions, but I just don't think it's done well. I think it's been done better in several games. But we're sneaking into this beautiful looking concrete, like Ziggurat or whatever this is, this crazy flat pyramid. This is a really cool looking level, this one, and it has a stealth section that you can partake in if you want to. You don't have to. I'm just going to be cruising around, crouching up, shooting people with this silenced 1911. You can also take a bunch of pictures if you want to do the optional things. There's a couple of nice ways to elongate the campaign. This red dot here, guys, if you ever see that red dot, don't use it. That's a red dot that's way off when it comes to the sensitivity. And it's a frustrating one as well, because I actually kind of like that red dot. The optics in this game are super weird. You've probably already seen it yourself, where instead of giving you a better picture, they seem to just give you a fatter frame. Like, they give you a bigger bit that sits on top of the gun and not the optic itself. Like, the whole game is a different piece of Lego sitting on your gun that has some arbitrary, squinty, tiny sight to look through that's not as useful as it needs to be and probably blocks more of your view than it helps you see. And I don't understand that. I know it's the Cold War. I know this technology is not there yet. It's not going to be as good as the later ones. But Black Ops 1 had some pretty limited sights, and I didn't mind them too much. This game just has a whole host of sights. The only sight I like is the Microflex. But the Microflex has one of the worst desyncs with sensitivity in the game, so I'll never use it. But see this? This one is really hard to use. That one's okay. I don't like that iron sight, so I'm not going to use that. So it's just going to be the AK, which is unfortunate. Hey, we get the Diamati though. This gun's really good. It's my intention as well when I make a walkthrough for a game like this, where it's not too difficult, so I can be super aggressive if I want to. I'm going to try and put on as many different guns as I can to show them off. And I'm going to try and push this as much as I can too. If that was Call of Duty 4 or Black Ops 1, if I'd have pushed those people like that, I was dead then. You can't play like that in that game. Black Ops 2, you can, you know. It's just different. It's like Modern Warfare. Even Modern Warfare was harder than this campaign. And even that one wasn't too bad, but you could not be aggressive like I'm being aggressive just then. Like, if you're going to be aggressive in that game, you've got to get really lucky. And because the checkpoints here aren't too great, I've got no intentions of testing checkpoints. But this map here is one of the most interesting levels in the game. It is a test facility for training soldiers. So they've got these interesting, like, Americana scenes set up that are showcasing what's going to happen when Russia invades the US, and it's going to be training these Spetsnaz guys in order to be as effective and as comfortable as they can be on enemy territory. Wow, that video case looked like Leon the Professional then. Did you see that? It looked a little bit like John Reno. You won't be able to see it because the screen's so fucking blurry right now with the depth of field I can't turn off. Because everybody loves depth of field, right, guys? Super cinematic. Why would you want the game to look clear and be precise so you could actually aim when you can cover it in Vaseline and punch yourself in the face? But this is a super cool place. My one criticism here is that I don't think the fights are big enough. This is such a cool environment, and you do the fights in like 10 seconds. But there's a lot of guys on the roof, so be very careful. There's a jeep that pulls up there that you can kill the people before they get out of it. And I'm going to be picking up a Gallo and getting real close later on. The Gallo is absolutely ridiculous in this game. If you've played the multiplayer, you already know. It is preposterously good, and it's even good in the campaign, which is the sign of a very good gun. Amazing in zombies, amazing in multiplayer, good in campaign. But this is the showcase level, this one. This is the one that makes you grateful that it's in the game. And I know COD have done this level kind of before. And I suppose we have to mention, don't we, that Titanfall's done a mission like this as well, and the Titanfall 2 campaign mission with the test facility is one of the most creative missions I've seen in first-person shooters in the last 10 years. So it's definitely a good motif to push. And if they wanted to make this level harder, they absolutely could have. Because this is an homage to Burger Town as well, which is in Modern Warfare 2. And it does remind me of Burger Town a little bit. I like this more than Burger Town. Although Burger Town using the kill streaks was really sick. I was a big fan of bringing in like the Predator missile and using the big ones. That's the type of stuff I really like when COD does that. Do you remember that level on Modern Warfare 3 where you could use the chopper gunner while you were playing? You could play the whole level normally and shoot people if you wanted to, or you could lay down every so often when it cooled down and bring in the chopper gunner or the Osprey gunner. It was just such a nice touch. I love the idea of being able to make those decisions of when to use it and when not to use it, and I feel like it just elevates everything. This is a canned kill, so you can't actually kill him, which is really stupid. But one of the things I've always wanted in COD campaign, like in an arcade mode or a cool mode, was the ability to earn kill streaks during campaign. Can you imagine if you killed a certain amount of enemies, you got a UAV, and it gave you heads-up information, and if you killed a few more enemies, you got the airstrike, and then so on and so forth, and you could set your kill streaks up depending on what the campaign was, and you could have all kinds of advantages if you could stay alive. And on Veteran, staying alive used to mean something, because it was easy to die on Veteran. And I suppose it is easy to die in this game if you play like an idiot. Like right now, I didn't think I was going to live, because I'm way out of position. I don't know the spawns. This is only the second time I've beat the game, and I'm just reacting with a shotgun, and luckily the game lets me do that because it's not very difficult. If this was COD 4, I'm already dead. People that close, you're just reading quotes, aren't you? You spend the whole time reading bloody quotes. So the idea of kill streaks in the campaign could be really, really cool and really, really elevating how you play. And they could get super creative with it, because you could get perks, you could get specialists, you could get, you know, damage modifiers for your guns. Like, can you imagine if you could pack-a-punch a gun in the fucking campaign? Can you imagine just this wonderful union of all the different systems coming together for a super fun mode? Because COD 4 had an arcade mode, which was really silly. Oh, by the way, this enemy here, the Juggernaut, if you knock him down, you can do some serious damage to him, but if he's not stunned, this guy will eat your bullets and then just kill you. So be very careful with that enemy. When I rushed him with the Gallo, I thought I'd kill him. I had no idea he was going to tank that much damage, and he nearly killed me. And he's going to turn up a lot. He's kind of here's the heavy unit, here's the dude slowing things down. But all you need to do is shoot the slat in his eyes, knock him over, and then go and hit him with everything you've got. But look how fun the shooting is. You know, this is a shit game. I'm not going to call Cold War anything but a shit game. If you like it, that's amazing. My tastes are higher than yours. It's just the way it is. This game's nowhere near where it needs to be. But the shooting's good. The shooting's fun. And you know what makes the multiplayer so frustrating? The fact that when you shoot people, your bullets don't necessarily hit them because there's so much bullshit going on. In the campaign, though, I've had no problems with that. I've had no detection problems at all. A member of my community by the name of Sloth said he had hit detection problems on the first level. I've had none. I don't know if it's a system thing. I don't know if Sloth was just shooting the wrong things. I don't know what was going on, but I've had no issue with that. I find shooting in the campaign to be really fun. Like, it sounds good, it feels good, it's got great feedback. Same with zombies. Shooting in zombies, it's a pleasure, you know, it's an absolute joy. The one area of this game they nailed is the feedback for shooting people. The guns don't sound as good as Modern Warfare, they don't animate as good, they don't look as good, this is not as pretty as Modern Warfare. But when you hit things, it feels like you're shooting them, and it feels real nice. And I really appreciate that. Because those things I just mentioned are the only good thing about Modern Warfare. I hate that game more than this somehow. And this is a broken, empty, pandemic-riddled game that never really launched. Like, there's so much missing from this game, it's an absolute joke. I've never played a more content-lacking Call of Duty at launch in my life. I've never played a multiplayer that is so half-assed and so terrible in any of the CODs in my life. I've never played a game that is so not worth the money you paid for it. Because you know the most ironic thing? This is one of the hardest gunfights in the game coming up. I find it so ironic that we paid more for this COD than we ever have, and it's worse than they've ever been feature-wise. Absolutely delicious, the irony there. It's already on sale as well, guys. You can get this game for 33 quid. When it came out, it was fucking 70 quid. 70 quid for the worst COD ever outside of Modern Warfare. Fuck that game. But this fight here, the reason it's difficult is not necessarily the fight. It's a bunch of enemies in a big room, and there's a couple of juggernauts that kind of cause some havoc. And then afterwards you have to climb on an APC, but the problem is they don't checkpoint you. So while you're climbing on the APC, you can't control your character. You have to climb an APC, turn a turret, and then control your character. In that time, you can die. I don't know why it works like this. I don't know why people don't test their games. I don't know any world where you should die when you're not in control of your character. But it happened to me, and I found this fight to be very frustrating on my stream. Luckily, on this recording run, I got this one attempt, and it wasn't bad at all, and I didn't die. But it had nothing to do with me and everything to do with the game. So if you're having problems here, and you're looking on YouTube for a walkthrough and you stumble on this one, and you're pissed off because it looks easy for me and you're having a tough time, I know how you feel. This is the reason why I'm giving these Juggernauts so much respect, because I died here like 5 times on stream. This fight was a pain in the ass. And you don't have to stand in this doorway if you don't want to. You can push up to some pretty good clipping spots and get some LMGs and just decimate, but I wanted to just get this done. I did not want to be here too long, because this is probably my least favourite gunfight in the game. And you can die really quick from the Juggernauts here. They just melt you. And we've got the M16, and you might notice the hit marker is slightly different. The reason the hit marker is popping up like that is because I'm hitting the vehicle and it's giving me the impression that I'm hitting armour. I think that's the same hit marker you get when you hit the plates on Warzone, maybe. Or maybe it's vehicle exclusive. It's a hit marker to tell you that you're hitting something armoured. But Woods is pushing up and doing his best. Be very careful not to shoot your team. It's 2020 and we still can't shoot our team, even though our team look just like the fucking bad guys. Everybody looks the bloody same. The hardest part about COD these days is not failing from shooting your own men. And I'll never understand why that's a problem. It's crazy, isn't it? These people that want immersion to the point that you spend more time shooting your own team than you do the enemy. I'll never understand that. There's also a decent amount of environments in this one that you go to. And the story in it is way better than it has any credit to be, outside of the really stupid MK Ultra level. I am curious though, guys. Do you think it's possible to spot the twist? Because I don't know if you can. Like, knowing now what I didn't know the first time I played, I just don't know if you can see that coming. You can see yourself being manipulated. Come on, we've got a job to do, is pretty obvious. Although, let's face it, it's nowhere near as good as Would You Kindly. But just the idea of piecing together that opening mission where you're looking at the plane and the Jeep arriving, and then piecing together what happens after that. Outside of a very out there guess, the type of person that watches things to spot the twists, outside of going, I bet you're this and they're this and that's what this is, I just don't know if they leave enough breadcrumbs for you to see that information in the main narrative. Like, I've not played all the side missions, I've not done all the optional intel and read all the information. If you read all the stuff, you probably get a much better idea of that before it happens. But I don't think you should have to do that. I feel like the narrative itself, the main mission, should give you enough foreshadowing for you to be able to spot what's going to happen in any of the narrative beats. And I just don't know if this game did that. So, if you know that answer, guys, if you're super into the campaign, you played it a ton and you listened to all the stuff, I'd love to hear from you, because I'm never playing this campaign again, probably. You know, it's okay for what it was, considering that they made it during the year that wasn't a year, because COVID turned up and ruined everything. I think Raven did a fine job, and I'm a big fan of Raven as a dev. Whatever they do next for Call of Duty, if they get a proper dev cycle, they get the proper attention and time and production costs and everything, I think they'll do a really good job. But here's where you're going to die if it's going to happen, right now, as soon as you touch this. So, see how I got shot, but it was only once? You can die in that moment, and you have to do that entire fight again. So, right now, I really don't want to do that, so you're going to see me just flitting everywhere, trying to make sure nobody hits me. And then there's a whole power fantasy sequence coming up here where you're in this vehicle, and you're shooting stuff and everything's dying. But there's the checkpoint just then, where it says saving. So if you die at any point before that, you have to do the whole thing again. It's not the end of the world, I just don't think it suits it very well, because it's not a particularly fun segment. And the segment itself is tougher than getting on a vehicle and getting epilepsy the whole time. Because, I don't know about you guys, but when I start shooting this gun, I can't see. This is the type of stuff that I'm really looking forward to in video games, when you can turn screen shake off, when you can turn flashing off, when you can turn all this bullshit that you don't need. Like, I appreciate that there's somebody out there just being like, I love the pretty colours. Like, that's great. That guy's having a fucking wonderful time. I'm sitting over here just getting vibration white finger, wondering where the bad guys are. You know, I just want to shoot back. I don't want to be on a roller coaster. You know, I don't want an earthquake every time I press the trigger. I appreciate immersion, I appreciate realism, I appreciate the conceit of balance, but just let me turn that shit off, dude. If it was up to me, I'd play the game with no bloody textures. I don't give a shit. I just want to be able to see the bad guys and put my gun on them and shoot them and have a good time, you know? But this level coming up's kind of cool. Moving through this snowy environment, using zip lines, using a sniper rifle. You'll notice this game really likes to give you sniper rifles for some reason. That was weird too, wasn't it? Just then would say, leave some for me, because I killed both those people. But if you watch that slowed down, I don't think I got a hit marker for shooting that other soldier. Which is kind of interesting. But there's MP5s and Krigs on the ground here. One of the cool features of this campaign is they show you the attachments that the weapons have on them. So even in the campaign, the weapons do have different attachments. You don't get chance to choose them and set your character up like you could in Black Ops 2 and 3, which I think is a huge detriment to the game. But at least the weapons in the world have attachments and you can find different ones. It's really nice, actually, that feature. Wow, that was a hit marker? Oh no, he died. There we go. Sniper up on the balcony. I say balcony, he's up on the ridge, isn't he? Snipers in this game are very strong. I'm not a big fan of them though, so you won't see me use them too much. But everything else, absolutely. Especially the shotguns. Running around this game with a shotgun is a goddamn delight. Also, the slide is really strong. This slide I'm doing, it gives you a nice speed boost. You can do it sideways as well. There's some interesting movement options in this game, all considered. Like, I feel like there's a lot of good ideas here. They did such a good job in some ways, and then they just fell down on a lot of other things that really hurt the game. Because let's face it, this was a Sledgehammer gig, wasn't it? This was a Sledgehammer gig until they got fired. Raven was doing the campaign, Sledgehammer was doing the multiplayer. You can tell because the multiplayer maps are fucking awful, and they've got Sledgehammer written all over them. And then Sledgehammer get fired. Raven have to finish the campaign, even though production cycle's obviously been troublesome. Treyarch come in to put their name on it to make sure some people actually fucking buy it, because if you tell them that it's another Sledgehammer game, a studio no one has any faith in, and then you tell them that they fired them because what they did do wasn't good enough, you have yourself the recipe for a bunch of people to go, I'm not buying that shit. So they bring Treyarch in to be the sacrificial lamb on the name of the game. Raven probably get rushed to finish what they're already doing, which is a decent campaign that could have been much stronger. You've got the skeleton of a shitty multiplayer mode. You've got Treyarch coming in and probably speeding it up, probably making it slightly more bearable, and then it just all comes together into a package that just doesn't work. And now they're going to spend the next 6 to 8 months fixing it. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because look at Modern Warfare. Everybody wanted a million things changing in Modern Warfare, they didn't change anything. They absolutely just completely committed to it. Bad ideas all around, horrible game, don't play it, absolute dog shit. Then you have this game that has some good ideas in it, hindered by some bad ideas in it, and they're probably not going to get changed either. However, Treyarch do seem to be taking the brunt of the criticisms. Treyarch do seeming to be wanting to make a difference, so maybe they will tweak it. And if you look back on Sledgehammer's previous Call of Duty, which was World War II, a game that was originally Advanced Warfare 2, but because the jetpacks got frustrating for a lot of scrubs, they decided to axe that and go back to World War 2, a period that got frustrating for anybody that likes modern games. And when they released that game, it was in such a horrible state, they fired them. They fired the people in charge of the game, they completely changed the game, and then it became a really fun Call of Duty. Still had pretty questionable maps, still had some questionable balance and some problems here and there, but fundamentally, World War 2 became a much better COD than it launched, and it gave me hope that maybe that can happen again. However, Modern Warfare was so stubborn and so delusional that they'd done the right thing with all these horrible choices that you either get used to or you stop playing, that it didn't do it there. And now we have Cold War, which is carrying the sins of all these games, and hopefully, with a bit of luck, this is my favourite Optic, by the way. The problem is the sensitivity on it's really weird. And unless you get used to that sensitivity, because here's what happens in this game, guys. If you choose to get used to the sensitivity on that Optic, when you use an iron sight, it's going to be weird. And vice versa. So the only thing I really do in this game is hipfire, because it's the only thing that makes any sense. This is the Hauer shotgun, though, named after the mighty Rutger Hauer, who passed away, unfortunately, but guy's a legend and will live on. So it's a really fun gun to use. You'll notice I'll be picking it up as much as I can. But as I was saying before I got distracted, this is me showing you that the sense is just weird. I'm trying to get a feel for it and I can't. So this game could get a lot better. They could tweak a lot of things and make it a lot more fun, and I do have faith that they'll do something about it, but I feel like at this point there's no reason having faith in Call of Duty. It's never going to be what it was. It's just too focused now on stealing money from children. And it's just... Why get excited for old times? What's the point in getting so invested in making Call of Duty great again when it doesn't deserve to be great again? And hopefully there'll be another franchise that comes out and buries it. Like right now, I don't want COD to be great again. I want COD to die. I want COD to die, and I want it to get killed by something better. I want it to get killed by something that deserves success, something that's really worth playing, and something that reminds us what the reason we liked Call of Duty in the first place. And personally, I think Titanfall did that. It did that for me. The problem is, Titanfall was too skillful of a game, and when you make a game too skillful, the shit players leave. And when you don't have a foundation of shit players, you don't have a community. And every single person that picks that game up in the bargain bin, running into those good players, is going to stop playing. They're either going to improve and get better and learn to stomp, or they're going to get mercilessly stomped and never play again. And I think anybody that played that game knows that Titanfall was easy to start, but very, very difficult to master. And the difference between a good player on that game and a bad player is so huge and startling that it was just doomed to fail. Because video games now are all about removing that excellence. They're all about removing that advantage. They don't want somebody to go 50-1. They want you to go 50-50 and get so pissed off that you buy the new gun instead of earning it. They don't want skill to supersede. They want anybody to pick up the controller and feel like they're good when they're not. They want to empower people who will never be good so that they keep playing and buy all the battle pass. They essentially want to get rid of the highest level of video games, and I just don't understand it. Like, the whole point of having a community is that you have the low level, you have the mid tier, and you have the high tier. And they all work because they're all so different than each other. When everybody has a force multiplier, meaning that they can kill anyone else, there's no ambition to get better at that game because you're fighting against a dice roll. And when you fight against a dice roll, it doesn't feel good. And that's the reason why I want COD to go away, because COD right now is in such a horrible state. It's in a terrible state, and everybody's blaming skill-based matchmaking, and it isn't skill-based matchmaking's fault, guys, because if this game actually had skill-based matchmaking, you would be playing with capable players. You'd be playing against capable players with capable players. But you're not. You're playing against capable players with the special bus, and they're all in wheelchairs, and you're the guy that has to push them up the hill. And that's not skill-based matchmaking, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. Skill-based matchmaking is everybody of comparable skill levels coming together. This is something else. And this is one of the reasons why COD will never be fun in it again. It will never be fun, because it's not just you playing against capable people with capable people. It's you being put into an impossible situation where even on your best day, you'll never win. And that's not what COD was ever about. Even on those dirty, filthy tryhard days where you got into a lobby with some good players and you had to fight against a full stack of people in party chat, you still had the chance to win. Now you don't. Now the game wants you to lose because it's calculated that you should lose, and that statistically if you lose you'll play for longer. And it's just stupid. Can you imagine a game telling you when you will play and when you won't play? I can't imagine anything more patronising than some dude in a suit who's looking at an Excel spreadsheet of statistics and metrics and him calculating how I feel at any given moment in a fucking video game. And you know they've not played the game themselves. Like, that's a guy with probably a 5 KD because he has no bloody hands, so the game works for him. Like, they're like the mobile players in Bad Business, where the game shoots for you. And if you come up against a mobile player at max range, you're dead, because they don't miss. And you do. And you're shooting at a pixel. And they're not even shooting, they're talking to their mum and dad. They're asking for some shit for Christmas, dude. They want to play Fortnite. And they just murk you in 3 frames. It's hilarious. And speaking of hilarious, this segment here is actually pretty tricky. And I get really lucky here. So the concept is pretty simple, but it's done really poorly. This is another one of those moments where this can be really hard if the game is a dickhead, and really easy if the game gives it you. So do you see that platform that I'm shooting at right now? We're going to attach a crane to that, and we're going to pull it out, and you'll notice that we've descended several layers in the stratum of this building. Each of those layers is going to have enemies on it, and you're going to have no cover, essentially. It's a really, really unfair sequence, that can be incredibly frustrating. And I'm happy to report that this is a one and done on my recording run. I had no problems here. But if you watch my first playthrough on Twitch that's in my VODs, I got killed here several times. I was getting mad. So if you're having problems here, guys, just know the game will eventually give it you. It has nothing to do with you. And the problem is that there's no real place to hide. There's always a vantage point where the enemies can shoot you. And my strategy here is to just shoot as many people as you can. I even saved a couple of smoke grenades to try and throw some smoke on the platform and to hide and see if that helped. And the smoke goes through the platform. So the smoke is literally where it lands, not on your vehicle. So you can't smoke yourself because you're rising upwards and the smoke is just on a level beneath where you're rising above. So it's just kind of dog shit, really. And I thought that was a really clever idea at the time. I thought I'd come up with a cool solution. Just smoke my feet, and then there's just a big cloud of smoke and everything will be fine. It should work like that, in my opinion. In COD 2, you could do that. Smoke the area in front of you, sprint out into it, the AI wouldn't one-frame you. Sometimes it was the only way to survive. Not here. Not in this game. But I'm getting a really, really lucky run, so that's all that matters. And as soon as you get to about here, you should be okay. Also, I don't think you can prone. I think that's the reason why this is supremely shit too. But fuck that sequence. I hope you get it first attempt like I did. And now we're on Desperate Measures, playing as Dmitry Belikov. So I think this is the best level in the game, as far as bringing something cool to the table. It's not a cool concept, but it gets you to move around and do some cool things, and I like new things. You'll notice I've trimmed it all out because there's no need for me to show you how to do it, because the game has checkpoints and indicators, and all you do is follow the indicators. It's very fun, it's very interactive, it's very hand-holdy. And I've trimmed it out, which is a shame, because it's cool. It's a cool section. But this is a walkthrough, guys. You don't need me to show you how to follow a waypoint. You need me to show you what to do when the shit hits the fan. And even then you don't need me, because you're bloody good enough and this game's easy. So instead, I'm just going to run around this room and shoot as many guys as I can with a shotgun. And this is really fun. I love this playstyle in this kind of environment. Like, just look at this. React and shoot. And because this hip sensitivity is not bullshit like all the other sensitivities, I can actually hit things. And there's a pretty cool clip coming up here, which I enjoyed when I did it. I think it's this level anyway. I end up jumping off a balcony and shooting a bunch of people as I'm rotating, and it just looks really sick. I think it's this part here. Watch this. How fucking cool was that? How am I alive? I don't even know. That was cool though, right? That's probably my favourite moment in this footage I recorded. But this is fun. This is probably my favourite shootout in the game, because it's quite claustrophobic. It's got verticality. It's got enemies everywhere. You've got to react, and they don't instantly just view kick you into oblivion and kill you. If this was the old CODs, the hard ones, I can't do this. I'm already dead. Like, imagine this on Mile High Club. Can you imagine me standing out in this corridor with the guy shooting at me there on Mile High? I'm already dead. Like, you can't even begin to tell people how easy COD campaigns have become. Even realism or realistic on Black Ops 3, the enemies had a delay before they shot you, because if they shot you, you died. So you could kill them before they did anything. And even then, that difficulty, as hard as it was in some of those broken areas, it was nowhere near as bad as what the conventional CODs can be. You know, Pavlov's Nightmare, no fighting in the war room, Blowtorch and Corkscrew, Heart of the Reich, you know, some of those areas, if you get bad runs on those areas, they're some of the hardest things in any games. Black Ops 1 especially. Black Ops 1 has areas where you can get absolutely decimated. And it's still hard too, even on PC. One of the things I noticed coming back to these classic campaigns, when I played them on controller, I got my ass kicked because I wasn't as capable as I am on a mouse, because I wasn't as fast, you know. It's really difficult to keep up on controller on the campaigns because it's just a more difficult control method, a less precise one. And what I noticed when I went back on PC playing the campaigns, I was shitting on the campaigns because I was quicker than the AI. And you can do that in campaign if you really try on controller and you get really, really good and you memorize everything. But you're still going to have a tougher time just because of the limitations of the speed of your aim. I felt that a lot of those campaigns were a lot easier on PC because I was a lot more deadly. And then I played Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 1 was still a pain in the ass. And then you look at the remasters. You know, when they remastered COD 4, I know they made that easier. I felt it. I felt how easy that campaign was. It wasn't right. And I didn't try the Modern Warfare 2 remaster, but it wouldn't surprise me if they made that easy too. This is weird as well. This is a section where you fight a lot of people. And I tried to be really aggressive here, but there's just too many. So I'm just going to use this door and the Gallo. It's a wonderful combination too. But just imagine using a shotgun in a Call of Duty campaign on its hardest difficulty. Usually this just wouldn't work. Like, I'll never forget there's a mission in COD 4 that I remember from the 360 back in 2007. And it involves pushing up a hill at night, and there's a bunch of houses that you have to go through to, like, check for something. And in those houses, there's guys with shotguns. And those guys react in a frame and kill you instantly. It's so crazy. It's the only reason that no fighting in the war room is difficult, because there's a section where you have to go through these thin areas, and there's shotgun guys. Like, shotgun guys in that game are the most dangerous thing you've ever seen. And you just don't see those kind of segments anymore. You don't see that kind of, oh my god, you're instantly dead. And I can't decide whether or not that's for the best. Because you're probably wondering how I feel about this game not using the stim, which pissed me off something fierce. And if you've watched any of my walkthroughs recently for COD games, you'll have heard me talk about the future of healing, which is just a combination of old and new. And it involves using the stim shot. The stim shot in this game, you press it, you stab yourself in the chest, you get a heal. It's glorious. Why isn't it the central healing system in this game? Why isn't this game balanced around the stim shot? Can you imagine how aggressive and how fun that could be while still being very challenging? Instead of hiding behind a chest-high wall and cowering from the enemies, you can aggressively heal while sliding, while jumping, while doing things, while fighting back. And I just feel like it adds an extra dimension of skill to the game, because intelligent healing is not the easiest thing to do. And I feel like this game should have had it. I feel like Modern Warfare should have had it. I feel like the people that made the campaign, they missed a trick by not implementing how cool the stim shot is. And the sad part is, you can find stim shot in the campaign, and they limit it to 3 uses. Same with zombies, they limit it in zombies as well. I feel like the stim shot should be how you heal. And I don't think it should be slow. I don't think it should have a huge recharge. I think the stim shot should be there when you need it. And they could just make the game hard. Because I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. When you die, and it's your fault because you didn't heal intelligently, there's no better way to die, because you know it was your fault. You know it was on you. I love dying when it's my fault. I don't like dying when it feels like it's not my fault. And I don't like dying when I've just sat behind a wall for 15 seconds getting to full HP only to pixel peek and get one framed. Like, it just seems so like, look at this right now. It's not even a video game, this. This is me just murking enemies because I'm armoured and I can't be killed. And I'm spending more time reloading because you often do. But can you imagine if you could use the stim shot to heal? It's so cool. I love the animation. I love the idea of it. And there's a game that did it many years ago, but they did it badly. And that game's called Bad Company. Battlefield Bad Company. You had to swap to it like a weapon, and it was the slowest animation in human history, and it was lame, and I hated it. But you do it quickly, effectively, and you can still fight while you're doing it, and it's the coolest thing in video games for me. And I'd love to see an evolution in the healing mechanics and in the HP mechanics, but we're just not seeing it. The closest thing we're seeing to a different take on that is probably something like Doom Eternal with the Flame Belch, which is an aggressive tool that you can use while fighting back to guarantee your safety by giving you armor. And it's a really cool mechanic. And we need more thinking like that. We need more creative thinking. Because hiding and cowering while a red screen fades is just dead now. There's nothing to it. It used to be cool. It used to be fresh. It used to be the best way to do it. It isn't anymore. There's only so many times you can hide. Like, you can only spend so many decades hiding behind a chest-high wall. And I'd love to see some bold steps. And I'm not asking for stupid shit, you know. You don't have to go nuts. But it's cool. It's cool to see risk. Take some risks. Enough of the same shit, dude. And what would you do, guys? What would you do if you could? If you could have any kind of healing system in a video game, what would you choose? Because we must be on the precipice of the next thing in healing. This reticle here, I don't like it because you're practically staring through a fucking keyhole with a huge fanny pack on the back of it. Like, look at the size of the back of this scope compared to the Optic. The Optic is a tiny circle, and somebody stuck a Game Boy on it. Somebody stuck one of those fake Game Boys where you press the buttons and it messes about with liquid and floats a bunch of pieces around inside the fake screen. That's what this is. Fucking terrible Optic. However, the sensitivity on that one's not too bad. So whenever I pick that one up, I feel quite confident. And speaking of feeling quite confident, this fence, the enemies don't shoot you through it. I don't know why. It must register as a wall on their AI, so they will never shoot you through this for some reason. You're completely free to shoot these people at your own leisure. I couldn't honestly tell you why, but I'll use it. This is a pretty fun level, this one. It's also the opportunity to use the Hauer with the flaming rounds. You can get Dragon Breath on the shotgun. And it's so strong, because even if you get a hit marker, it stuns them because they're on fire. But here's us moving forward again after the transition. Using the RPD and the AKs. There's a couple of mines on this segment as well, so be careful of those. This is your tutorial that mines exist. You can probably prone the mines, because that's how the bouncing Bettys worked in the old games, but I'm just going to shoot them. It's interesting though, isn't it, this notion of them... Can you remember in Modern Warfare where they bigged up the campaign? If you don't know the target, you are the target. And they got that guy with the mustache playing Price, and they were talking about how fucking real it all was, and oh my god, you're raiding a house incredibly slowly, not really doing much in this incredibly scripted sequence that's trash to replay. It was so realistic, dude, I could hear a baby crying. Like, do you remember that? Do you remember how much they were pushing the fucking campaign? They pushed the campaign in that game so hard, and it was boring. Just a woman with massive eyebrows, and that was it. Like, that whole campaign... I hated it. I hated it so much I didn't even commentate the walkthrough. That's how much I didn't like it. Which you might have noticed. Like, the campaign was... I just thought it was terrible. Really, really bad. Visually stunning, you know. Visually stunning. The cutscenes and everything were really nice. But the part where you played, I found it to be so miserable. Like, I think the only part of it I liked was that burning... framework place in that cave when you could use the shotgun a little bit. That was kind of fun. But everything else, absolutely miserable. And do you know what's really funny about them pushing that campaign? The COD before that was Black Ops 4. That didn't have a campaign. You remember that? Remember when Black Ops 4 came out and there was all that controversy because they were dropping the campaign? And then you've got those people that are like, oh, no one plays campaign in COD, everybody plays the fucking everybody plays multiplayer. You know, why would you play campaign in COD when there's multiplayer? You got a lot of those people popping up. And then they made out like the campaign was the most unique and interesting thing in the world for Modern Warfare, that everybody had to play it. It's like the ultimate draw for the game. And then can you remember how many people talked about how the campaign was the best campaign in the world? All these people that never played Titanfall 2, that got no eyes and no tastes and should be shot, they're all telling you how fucking good this shitty campaign was. I remember those people going so nuts over the campaign, saying how the campaign was so sick and all this. It just doesn't make sense, does it, how much that campaign got pushed? Like, before that, COD was essentially phasing campaign out, because there's no way to sell boxes in the campaign, so fuck these people. And then now you move forward to this, you've got Raven, people who make single-player first-person shooter campaigns, really fun ones, by the way. Soldier of Fortune, Singularity, they've made a bunch of them, really good. And then they make a campaign, and they do a decent job all considered, even though it's still kind of weak if you ask me. This is the flaming shotgun, by the way. And then everybody now is just going like, oh, campaign doesn't really matter, it's only 3 hours long. Campaign doesn't matter, it's 3 hours long, you know. The game's doomed, it's garbage, it's only 3 hours long. It's interesting how they swing around with the consensus on the importance of the campaign. Because when I was younger, when you bought COD, the first thing you did was play campaign. You beat the campaign, and then you jumped on multiplayer. The campaign was like warming you up to the guns, getting you used to the speed of the game, and then boom, you jumped online and you kicked ass. Because back in like COD 1 and COD 2, multiplayer wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now. And obviously, you're not going to replay the campaign a million times, and if you do, you're a special person, because that's just not how it works. Campaign is great for 1, 2, 3 runs, maybe. A run every so many years to remind yourself of the fun set pieces, but fundamentally, they don't make the campaigns anymore to be replayed, I don't think. Because they've almost kind of adopted the same attitude, haven't they, where it's everybody plays it for multiplayer. And I think of all the COD campaigns now, the ones that are coming out here are the hardest to replay, because they have the most downtime. You look at something like COD 4, it has a decent amount of storytelling and downtime, but when it puts you in the mission, you generally shoot for a good 10 to 15 minutes and then it scoops you out. They used to be narrative, shooting sequence, like variety sequence, helicopters, tanks, you know, that kind of stuff, AC-130, and then more narrative. And it was very bookended, wasn't it? It was very opening cutscene, Lance Henriksen, gameplay, Keith David, and then chopper segment, really gruff AC-130 man, and then another cutscene, somebody else famous. Sam Worthington saying something. Sam Worthington ruining another franchise. And that was the story, wasn't it? And the cool thing there was, you could skip the cutscenes, get to that 15 minutes of gameplay, and there might be a few moments where your team speak a little bit and it goes a bit quiet for some pacing. But fundamentally, you could replay them because it was gameplay. Gameplay first, and skippable cinematics. Whereas, in a game like this, there are levels in this game where you go into that warehouse and plan the next mission, and it's all in engine, so you can't even skip them. So you sit for 15 minutes waiting to skip a sequence you don't even care about to get to a good 5 minutes of fighting before the next in-engine talky moment that you can't skip. And it just kills all flow. It kills all flow to get to where you need to be. And the problem in modern days when you give people these gaps in the fun, these gaps in the controlling moments, is that you give them an opportunity to turn the game off, and there's so much competition now. Your goal is to guarantee that your player doesn't want to turn the game off because they don't realise they're still playing. And I feel like a campaign like this one does a terrible job at that. This is the kind of play for 5 minutes and then stop and do that every day for 3 months and beat the game. Because every single minute you're fucking standing still and stopping. You know all these moments where the gameplay cuts, guys? It's because it's stopping. It's because it's standing still. It's because I'm not doing anything. I'm not shooting. I'm not part of a narrative. I'm not part of something that gives me the COD experience. I'm part of some twisty-turny, Twin Peak bullshit storyline. And that's not what I think is what COD should focus on. Because you don't play Call of Duty for a super great story. You don't. Think of COD 4. Think of COD 2. Those games are great. The stories in those games are great. But they're not great because they're constantly telling you how great they are. They're great because they establish a scenario. Terrorist has big bomb. Gotta stop him. They establish characters that you spend time with, that have got cool names and that kick ass, so that you like the characters. And then you use the cool characters to stop the terrorist using the big bomb. It doesn't have to be Shakespeare. It doesn't have to be this Herculean effort for the most plot twists and the most, like, tropes of storytelling. You know, all the Greek formats coming in together. It doesn't need to be that. And then you have a game like this where the story's trying so fucking hard that it spends more time pushing it on you than it does pushing the shooting. Like, what if you want to come to this game and just shoot? If you want to come to this game, guys, and just shoot, you have an hour of gameplay. This guide right now is an hour and 15 minutes long, and it's every moment you shoot your gun. This campaign, everyone's saying it's 6 hours long. 6 hours long, and you spend an hour shooting your gun? And of course, that's not a good number. It's not conducive to good metrics and good numbers, because I'm not doing the side missions. I'm not doing the optional stuff. This is all main missions. But it makes you think, doesn't it? When I can condense all the encounters down to an hour, where's the game? Where's the Call of Duty from old? Because you know the template for this walkthrough that I'm using is the same template as Cold War, as Black Ops 1 walkthrough. So this is the very same file I edited, commentated, and then rendered for the Black Ops 1 campaign. And I did the same thing to that game as I've done to this game. I took out all the moments I wasn't fighting, all the moments where they were telling me things, all the story points, which I might add are better than the story points in this game. The story points in this game aren't too bad, but I prefer the ones in that one. And that walkthrough was nearly 3 hours long. 2 hours and 48 minutes is how long that walkthrough was, of gameplay, of shooting. Do you see how we've come here? And I know it's not the fairest representation because this game is troubled, and speaking of troubled, this is the worst level in the game, it's fucking redundant and I hate it. This has had a troubled production cycle and it's not a fully fledged campaign. It's obviously, you can see the limitations in the campaign, you can see the limitations in this level I'm doing right here. It's not a fair contrast to compare the dev cycle they had for Black Ops 1 to the dev cycles they had for this, because it's just been an absolute nightmare. However, they're still pushing this off as a COD campaign. They're still pushing this game out for 70 quid. 30 quid now, because it's a colossal failure and a piece of shit. You can't lay down in the water as well, which is super frustrating. I hate this gunfight. So I have to compare them, because they're the same thing intrinsically. The difference being is, this is 10 years later. 10 years of technological advancement, 10 years of the advancement of the industry. So technically, this should be better, because that's 10 years where modelers got better, that's 10 years where writers got better, that's 10 years where everything that culminates in what a successful and enjoyable video game is evolving. In theory, of course. We know that this is not true, because modern video games are not necessarily better just by virtue of being more modern. But in theory, this should be a stronger game. And you ask yourself the question, don't you? Do you think it is? Is it a prettier game than Black Ops 1? Absolutely. Is it a more powerful game than Black Ops 1? Absolutely. But is it better than Black Ops 1? I don't know. It's 2 hours less gameplay, I'll tell you that much. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because this campaign debate, like, look at Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare is a good example. Modern Warfare is a campaign that lots of people love. And I don't really get it because I thought it was trash, and I don't get it. But it's kind of sizable, isn't it? Once again, I think Modern Warfare has the same problems this game has. I think it spends too long telling you a story you shouldn't care about. I think it spends too long taking control away from you. And considering it's meant to be a shooting gallery of an arcade shooter, you don't do a lot of shooting. But still, if you reduce that game down, I think it's like 2 hours, 2.5 hours long, that walkthrough. Which is not as long as classic COD, but it's still a meatier chunk. And what it leads me to think, it leads me to kind of resent the fact that Modern Warfare got a full dev cycle and this game didn't. Because I don't like what Modern Warfare became. I think Modern Warfare is the worst Call of Duty ever made. And I'm counting Call of Duty 3 in that list, which is easily the wonkiest, dumbest COD I've ever played. But the reason that I rate Modern Warfare so poorly on this list is because it had everything going for it and it still fucked it up. And I think that that's more impressive than a bad game. Like, COD 3 is a bad game. It is a rushed game that was put out to capitalise on the success of COD 4. And it didn't really do a good job. Sorry, not COD 4, COD 2. And it shows. If you play that game, you can tell. If you've never played that game, you need to play it as well. It's so funny. I kid you not, that game is such a... It's worth playing just because of how weird it is. And how they managed to fuck up COD 2, which COD 2 is an amazing game. But Modern Warfare is...
That was the door into the Soviet.
Modern Warfare had all the opportunity to be the best COD ever made. And in some places it is. The sound design on that game, I don't think the audio mix is good. I don't think you should be completely deafened when someone gets a kill streak. But the quality of the sound that the people made for that game are second to none. And the realism on those sounds are second to none as well. They have all the whips and the cracks and the reverbs and the tail end and the start. They have everything you need to have the highest quality, most ambitious audio in a shooter. It sounded like a Battlefield game when Battlefield had good sound. Like, superb sound. They took a lot of time to make the sound of that game beautiful, and then one man ruined it with horrible mixing, so fuck that guy. And it's the same with the animations. They took so much time showing you how much they loved the guns, how much they loved and respected You know, what makes guns so pretty and so amazing to some people. Not to everybody, of course. Not everybody likes guns. I like guns. And the animations in this game are okay, and the sounds in this game are okay, but they're not that same tier. Like, there's probably more time spent on that stuff in Modern Warfare than they had to spend on this game, because this game's just a mess. But then Modern Warfare just took it in several different directions and changed the franchise for the worse. And it's been tweaked, and people have got used to it, and people have learnt to play it, and people have had a lot of fun with it, and more power to you. But I'll never forgive that game, because it took something, it made it beautiful, it made it sound great, and it made it play badly. And to me, being able to play is what's so great about this franchise. And I think that this game plays well when it works. Like right now, when I'm running around the campaign shooting these people, and I can do that quick slide if I want to get into cover, and I can jump around and feel quite mobile, and when I shoot my gun there's not an earthquake happening that's stabbing needles in my eyes. Like, it feels like a video game. It feels like a game. It feels like a classic shooter. It feels like what COD used to feel like, and that's really important to me. And I'm not getting view kicked into oblivion, so it's better. Because in the old CODs, it was very easy to just have somebody punch you in the face repeatedly while you was trying to aim, because view kick was profound then. They've definitely changed that for the better. But I feel like it should have continued to evolve and advance, and I feel like a lot of the advances that Modern Warfare got and then squandered, this game didn't get. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Like, I would have loved to have seen Cold War get the chance that Modern Warfare got. I would have loved for Modern Warfare to be the shit show that it ended up being in spite of all its better intentions. Because it's easy to just have a game that sucks and then the next game redeems it, whereas this is the second bad COD in a row. And a lot of people didn't like BO4. So you could say it's the third bad COD in a row. Which is interesting, isn't it? Because what was the COD before that? World War II? So you could argue that there's not been a good COD in a while, and if you're even stricter and more stringent on your tastes, you could be one of those guys that doesn't think there's been a good COD since Modern Warfare 2. Like, so it begs the question, doesn't it? How does this franchise continue to exist? Because there's obviously the market of millions of gullible morons buying microtransactions, because that's how it exists. We know how it exists. It's the only reason it's still here is because some bugger keeps buying the battle pass. So you just like, where does it go from now? And then when you think about it, Treyarch have been pulled off of what they're developing, which is their 3-year dev cycle from Black Ops 4 to the game that comes out next year. Because if you don't know, it goes Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, Treyarch, and Modern Warfare was Infinity Ward, lol. This was Sledgehammer, lol. So next year is the slot that Treyarch have meant to occupy. And then it makes you think, doesn't it? If Treyarch have been pulled away to salvage whatever this game is, who are the people sticking around making their game? And what will that game be? So, not only are we now on a string of bad CODs, but we're now on a string of dominoes that are affecting the next COD. Because this COD was 1000% affected by COVID, and probably 1000% affected by Modern Warfare and some of the changes that that game has done. And now, this game's in a bit of a rough state, a rough spot with all these things happening and all this problematic design, and it's fringing and splintering all these different development teams. So, what is the next COD even going to be? Because you have that meme, don't you? You have that wonderful tradition in Call of Duty where the COD that was previously out is horrible, the new COD is great. Then when the new COD comes out, it's horrible, the last one was great. And the next one's going to save the series. And this has been happening since the dawn of time. So, we now have a Treyarch game releasing next year that's a 3-year dev cycle that's been interrupted by this game, splintered their staff, been affected by the pandemic, and then now being affected by Cold War. So you have a studio that not only has had to put up with a pandemic, but they've also had to put up with the pandemic that is Cold War, and create their own thing in spite of all these other elements. So like, what is that even going to be? It's probably going to be as balanced as this next sequence that you're about to watch. So welcome to this, guys. This is the end of the game. This is called Final Countdown. And you might watch this and think, wow, Chris, how are you not being immediately murdered by all these nasty men? Well, I couldn't answer that because this is absolutely broken. This sequence here is so broken, you're either going to do it or you're not. It's not up to you, it's up to the game. My piece of advice to survive that, quit the level and restart the level. Try it again for a couple times. If it still keeps fucking you, You can't do it. Restart the level again. You will eventually restart and they will give you a free pass. Because that segment is so broken, it feels impossible if you're on a bad run. Don't even entertain it. It's horribly designed. It's horribly balanced. No one tested it. It's a complete joke. And then this is the final mission, which is really underwhelming. I should have done the bad ending and killed all the people. That one was way more fun. But it's nice to see what the other side is. See what this is all about. But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Because Cold War is going to be forgotten in the grand scheme of things. It's going to be the interim game that was made on the year where the Black Death returned, and we didn't know how to stop it until we stopped it eventually years later. That's all Cold War is going to be. Cold War is going to be the one that just never stood a chance, and I wouldn't be surprised if it had a really, really good reputation 10 years from now of being like, it never stood a chance. They did a great job, all considered. But let's face it, this game's fucking dog shit. Don't buy this game. Don't buy this game discounted. Don't buy the Battle Pass. Don't buy it. Just don't. And you might be going like, that sounds really hypocritical, Chris. Why did you buy it? I didn't! I got it with my graphics card. I'm glad I didn't buy this game. If I'd have bought this game, I'd be in fucking tears. Because it's awful. It's got a semi-decent campaign that could have been so much better, which makes me sad because I know how good it could have been. It's got a zombie mode that's actually pretty good, but it's just one map until February, and by the time February rolls around, you've probably shot yourself with tedium, because you can only do so much in zombies, man. Grinding for camos is not fun. The guns themselves are all pretty similar. Like, there's just nothing to do, is there, really? Unless you're straight up autistic and that shit tickles you, like, you're just not going to be doing that, really. The multiplayer's garbage. It's unplayable. I don't know why anybody would want to play it. It's just torture. It's sadistic torture is what it is. And there are better games right now to play. You know, that hot game Cyberpunk just came out. That's not broken or in any way bad to play, right? Everybody loves that game. But it'll be interesting, won't it, to see what happens next year. Because I've been trying now for the last few years to get back into Call of Duty. I just think it's not going to happen. I think it's dead. I think the time with me playing Call of Duty is over. And I think it's time to look forward to whatever next comes out. Because, of course, Battlefield 6 is going to be amazing. Have you seen those people? People are actually saying that, unironically. People think Battlefield 6, the sequel to the Battlefield that pretty much killed Battlefield. They think that it's going to be the best thing in the world. Can you imagine thinking that the sequel to a Battlefield that pushed all the Battlefield players to Call of Duty is in any way going to be any different? Battlefield 6, guys, let me tell you. Battlefield 6 is going to be such a shit show. It's essential. It is essential to purchase it, because you need to be part of how big of a shit show it's going to be. Like, Battlefield 6, I can't wait, dude. I think it's going to be a kart game where you play as nothing but female kart racers, and I think the whole thing is going to be like firing SJW post notes on each other. It's going to be so sick, dude. It's going to be an interactive erotic novella kart game. It's going to be an all-female cast. It's going to be set in Vietnam. It's going to be so good, dude. What the hell are they going to do? Remember the marketing campaign for Battlefield 5? Don't like women in the trenches in World War II, don't buy the game. Like, how do you fuck up any more than that? Are they going to turn the guns into, like, sex toys? What are they going to do? It's going to be so good. I can't wait for Battlefield 6, dude. It's going to be the funniest thing in the world. And you know what's even greater, guys? Do you know if it is good, in spite of everything else, can you imagine how funny that's going to be? Getting a good Battlefield, like a good modern Battlefield after the shit show that was Battlefield 5. Like, I just don't even know what's going to happen, dude. I can't even begin to have faith in that game, and it's going to make it really enjoyable, because I'm going to play it anyway. I quite like Battlefield 5. It's a horrible Battlefield, and it's an absolute shower of shit, but I do like that game. DICE are in a bad place, though. A really bad place. It's going to be so interesting. But they're almost in as bad of a place as this game is. Because the fun thing about Battlefield is, it's in a horrible place, but nobody wants to buy its bullshit. This is a game that's in a horrible place, but everyone's buying the bullshit. That's the only thing separating DICE from modern Call of Duty. They can't get you to buy their nonsense, whereas kids just gulp this shit up, don't they? It's like G Fuel for them. Oh, this is cool as well. You get this huge minigun on this segment for about 10 seconds, and it ends so soon. I thought this was going to be a nice 10-minute segment of me bodying people with a death machine, and instead it's just no fun allowed, dude. This whole campaign might as well be no fun allowed. We didn't have the time to put the fun in. Like, look how fun this gun is. I'm just murdering fools with hipfire. Look at this gun. This right here is fun. This is a perfect metaphor, though, for Cold War. You get to the fun, and it's over in 15 seconds. But that's the walkthrough, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed some of the footage I was able to get. And if it helped you for whatever you were trying to do, I'm pleased that it could do that also. You take care now.